Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at Fedora 38. Fedora 38 just recently came out, and Fedora is among one of my favorite distros here, RPM based. And when it comes to Fedora and OpenSUSE both, I really like these distros. And Fedora always just seems to get better with every release. And this actually was a suggestion from Harry G. in one of his comments. Harry G left a comment here in my last video on MetaTrader 5, asking to take a look at Fedora. Fedora 38 review, please. Love your videos. Well, thank you, Harry. I appreciate that. And yes, I think that's a great suggestion. Now's a good time to show Fedora 38. So let's jump in. I'm out at the website here, taking a look at the Fedora website, and this is actually the download page. And here, I'm just going to get right to it. Of course, Fedora has a lot of different flavors, but the server version, and there's all the Fedora Spins, which I really like. Personally, I like the Spins, like the Cinnamon and the Fudgy Desktop and all that. But I'm just going to go with here the original, the ISO, the GNOME-based Fedora. And so here's our download, and this is what most people would download is the AMD 64 if you have a standard PC. Otherwise, if you're running a Mac or something else, you could use the other choices there. So I'm just going to download this, and then I'll load it in and be right back. Okay, so here we are at our boot screen. And so I'm just going to arrow up here because I don't want to waste time testing the media. What's up with that? Although it's good to have there, I guess. But I'm going to arrow up to the first choice and then just start it. And let's get into it. So this is the live version. And in the live version, you can evaluate Fedora and just kind of see how it is before you install it, which is really nice. Just run it right off your ISO stick. Or you can just get right to the install, which I'm going to do. And I'm going to kind of just run through the install real quick. This Fedora installer is different than what a lot of distros have. Many distros, in fact, most anymore, it seems like, use the Calamares installer, which is very simple and straightforward. But at least for me anyways, the Fedora installer, you got to kind of be on your toes a little bit. It's a little bit kind of confusing. It's not hard, but it does kind of throw you off. At least it does me. And here we are. We're in our live environment, so we're booting in. So I'm just going to get right down to the install here and just install this baby. So let's click the button and get started. Here we go. So we'll click this guy, and this will load the installer. The Anaconda, I believe it's called. If I remember right, it's been years, centuries, actually not that long. And so here we are. We got to our welcome screen, and by default, that all looks good. And I'm just going to scooch up here a little bit and get out of the way of the buttons. And here you can see that we got some red text here by the system, but the other two are okay. So the keyboard and time and date installed okay. I'm going to click on that. And then you can see by default that's checked. You just want to make sure it's checked. If you select it like that, it'll uncheck. So then you'll have to click it again to check it. And then I'm going to just go with the automatic install, and that'll just overwrite everything, just kind of go over the whole thing automatically. But this is where it's kind of confusing. I'm going to hit done here, and then it's going to bring up this screen, and it's going to say that you need a certain amount of space here, like at least 5 gigs. And you don't have enough free space if you already have data on your drive. So then you got to hit reclaim space. And so if you come up here, you can see that. And if you just click delete all, that'll delete everything on your hard drive. So all your data will be gone if it's something you need. But after that, then you want to click reclaim space. And then it'll reclaim your space back. So you got to do that first. Now the red text is gone and we can continue. And really, that's all we got to do for the install. So depending on how you look at it, some could say it's really simple. And so it's just that little thing you got to look for. I'm going to let this install, and then I'll be back. Okay, it's complete. So everything looks like it went okay. I'm just going to pop down here and hit finish installation. And then I'm going to shut down, and we should be good to go. So we'll just go down here. I'll shut down. And I'll remove my ISO, USB, and then I'll be right back. Okay, looks like everything went well. We're booting back in. And while we're booting in, I'm going to scooch back down, kind of get back in the corner. Get back in that corner there. Okay. And so our classic Fedora boot screen there, I always like their splash. And here we go. We're coming into our live environment, looking good. And there's our welcome to Fedora splash screen. So it looks like everything went great. I'm going to just click the start setup here. And so we got our location services and problem reporting. I guess I'm okay with those. Then we got our third-party repos. I'm going to enable that. That's cool. That'll probably enable like the RPMfusion. So I don't have to worry about the codecs, I think, which is great because I didn't know they actually had that feature enabled, because I remember they were saying that wasn't going to be available, but apparently they kind of had a change of heart. So I like that. Gave us an option. And I'm going to just skip the online stuff, and we'll just put in our username and Toadweek. Well, that's a little much, I guess. We'll just go with Toadweek. And you can see the full name allows uppercase, and then the username is lowercase. And then I'm just going to do a password here and then confirm. It's saying that it's a lame password, but that's okay. I'm not working at the Pentagon, or am I? So that's it. All done. And now it should complete the install, and we should load our desktop right in and be good to go. Yes. And that's our splash screen here asking for a tour. So I'm just going to say no, thanks, because I'll give you a tour. Then we have our activities button up here in the upper left corner. So that's nice. And then here's our bottom panel. And let's open up the software thing. I'm just kind of curious, the third-party repos, when I selected to allow the third-party codecs and so forth, repos. So I'm thinking that it probably added in the RPMfusion repos by default, which is great. I used to have to always go out and manually install those. And so if it's kind of doing that right up front, that's cool, because I think that might be something new for me. And right now it's just downloading the software catalog. It takes a little bit the first time you launch this to download the metadata and everything for the catalog, but it should be opening up any second now. And there we go. Nice. Looking good. So Authenticator, that's cool. I don't remember seeing that app up there before. I like it. Let's go into our burger menu here, and I'm going to select software repositories. And I just can't help being curious whether that's in there. I see our Flatpaks are enabled by default too. Very nice. And then here we got our Fedora repos. So those are all the standard Fedora repos that we would want to see here, and modular. And then we got our firmware. And then here we go. Our third party is enabled. And that's where you can enable it too if you forgot during startup install. So we got FlatHub, and here we are, RPMfusion for Fedora 38. They're both actually the non-free version for NVIDIA and Steam. So it looks like they added these in mainly for the purpose of the drivers, but they don't have the free version. So I'm going to add that in there actually, because I like the RPMfusion free, because that allows me to install some additional software like VLC Player, OBS Studio, things like that, instead of using the Flatpak. And so I'm going to open up my terminal real quick, just kind of bring that over here. And then I'm going to do a sudo dnf in for install VLC, because I don't think it's going to install it without that free version, but I just want to find out. So we'll let this kind of do its thing. And this might be a little bit delayed too, because the first time you run it, it's got to kind of synchronize all the repos and so forth. So I'm going to kind of let it do that and see if it sees VLC Player. I suspected that it won't, but you never know. So you can kind of see the repos listed there as it's going down here. And yeah, I don't think it's going to show the free version, but there is RPMfusion non-free for the NVIDIA and the Steam, just like we saw in our GUI, and nothing. So no match. Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. So I'm going to run out to the RPM website here. And actually, instead of closing that, let me go back in there. This is kind of an easy way to find the RPMfusion website. So I'm just going to go back in here, and down here where it's listed, we can look and see right here it's showing mirrors.rpmfusion.org. So I'm just going to go out to that website. Whoops, didn't mean to click on it. But I'm going to open up Firefox and go out there. So I'll close that, and then I'll just hit my meta key here, and then open up Firefox. And then I'm going to put that address in there. That was mirrors.rpmfusion.org. So I'm just going to manually type that in, and I guess it works better when you get rid of the old text. So mirrors.rpmfusion.org. And that should take us out to the website here. There we go. And you can see the first link here is enable RPM Fusion, but it's got all this other stuff here too, available packages and everything. I'm just going to click on the link. So clicking here, this will kind of switch us over to the page. And then here you can see you can download setup files. And of course, we want to select 38 because that's what we're on right now. And then it downloads the RPM file. And when I click on it, it should open it up in our software center here. And there we go. It's right in our software center. I'm just going to hit the install button. And I probably could have even done a search inside the software center now that I think of it. RPM Fusion free. Not sure if that would have worked or not, but probably. Anyway, now you know 2 ways to get it, just in case it would have worked the other way. So this is going to load in our app details. It's all installed, so excellent. Now if I jump into my console, actually, let me look in the back end here real quick. And it should be in our software repositories list. And so if I scroll down, don't see it there under third party, just the non-free. So let's jump into our terminal here. And I hit my up arrow to repeat the command where I did the sudo dnf install VLC. And I'm just going to let her rip again. Just put in my password. And now it should reload the repositories here. And on this reload, we found it. So very good. So now we have VLC. So it refreshed our packages. And so we'll just kind of let that do its thing. And it's asking us if this is okay to install the keys. And so I'm going to just say yes. And if you notice, the default is no here. Typically on the console on other packages, by default, yes is the answer. So if you just press enter, it'll automatically do yes. But on Fedora, it's the opposite. It'll just say no if you press enter by default. So it's kind of the opposite. If you're a little bit uncomfortable with that and you like having just yes for default and hitting enter, I can fix that. And I'll show you how to do that in a couple minutes here. So it says that it didn't install VLC anyway. So it says I got to remove some cache packages and it's showing the command. So sudo dnf clean packages. So I'm going to type that in there. And so now it removed 41 files. So that should do the trick. But before I try installing this again, let's edit our dnf.conf file. So to do that, let me expand this real quick and then just kind of make this bigger. Okay, sudo dnf. Oh, wait a minute. No, I want to sudo nano etc/dnf/dnf.conf. I'm going to go in the dnf.conf file here and let's optimize this a little bit. Not only make it default to yes, but let's make it faster and just better. So I'm going to just go down here to the end here in my terminal text editor, and I'm going to type max parallel downloads, no space, downloads equals 10. Let's do 10. So it'll download 10 at a time. That'll make it way faster. Then I'm going to type fastest mirrors. That way it'll choose the fastest mirrors for us. Fastest mirror equals true. And I'm just going to make it uppercase because the other ones are. And then finally, default yes equals true. So now we can default to yes. It'll choose the fastest mirror and it'll download 10 threads simultaneously. Awesome. So I press Control S to save everything and then Control X to exit. Now let's try installing VLC and see how it goes this time. So now it lists everything and you can see yes is default. So now I can just simply hit enter to say yes. So that's nice. And it should go a lot faster too. We should have a lot of downloads all at once. A lot of threads, running on the download. So boom, it's really fast now. Way better. And again, asking for the keys. So I'm just going to hit enter, default yes. And so that's how you modify the DNF config file if you want things to be more optimized in the terminal. So I think that might be helpful for some that aren't familiar with that, especially if you're new to Fedora. Those are some of the things that I do right off the bat after installing Fedora just to optimize it. So I just pressed our meta or super A, and that brought me straight into the menu here. So that's the keyboard shortcut for that. And let's do something else. Since we got the terminal open, let's go back in here into the software repositories in our package manager or GUI. I just want to make sure that the RPMfusion free is in here, and still not seeing that they're on the bottom. That's kind of weird. I would have expected it to show up in our repos list. So I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it's just listed here instead. So our RPMfusion 38 free is right there. So we're good. That's just under packages RPM. That makes sense because we did install it via an RPM package. So nice. We're all good there. All is well in the land. Since I got this open, lots of categories here, and I really like the layout on this. It kind of grows on me every time I look at it. There's the old standby Inkscape. Let's look at our repos. So here by default, it's going to the flat pack there. And then we got the Fedora Linux one, unknown source. And then flathub.org. So it seems to be a distinction. Fedora Linux is probably the one I would use, even though it says unknown source. I kind of prefer the Fedora or repos over the flat packs in most cases, unless it's not the latest and greatest, then I'll go with the flat pack. But if the same new version is available, I prefer just getting it straight out of the Fedora repos, and it's less bulky on the hard drive. So I'm going to hit install here and just install that since we're here anyway. And there we go. So easy peasy. Now we go back in the menu and there it is, Inkscape. Nice. And let's just take a quick look at it just to make sure the theming looks okay with the GNOME. Typically, I never have issues with theming in Fedora. That's one thing I really like about Fedora is the theming seems to work on all the different apps. And so I'll just choose one of these templates. The video template's my favorite one there. So just open that up and yes, everything looks great. I can see all the icons are all easy to see and themed very nice. And of course, it's showing here 1.22/2022-12- something. So yes, new, nice, and running great. So there you go. I like it. And I think all is well in the land here when it comes to the Software Center. The other area I like here is the developer category. This is where you can find all the cool developer stuff. So if you're into kind of programming and stuff like that, this is a great place to go to find all the popular IDEs for different programming languages. Even has Godot game engine that you can download if you like designing games. That's cool. Which reminds me, back here in the terminal, if you're a developer, you want to set up your Fedora environment for developing and have all the development stuff you need for developing software and so forth, I highly recommend jumping in the terminal and doing a DNF group install like this. So if we go in here and we type in sudo dnf and then group install, and now in double quotes, we're going to type in C space development space tools and libraries, end quote. And then another space and then another quote. We're going to put in development space tools, end quote. And so all that, if I press enter and then authenticate here, that's going to install all the development tools and libraries we need for having a nice, great development workstation here on Fedora. So that's something that will save you a whole lot of headache if you do that right up front, if you want to develop on Fedora, if you're like a C++ programmer, Python developer, or you just like to mess with stuff when it comes to programming in general. This is the first step I recommend everybody take. And that simple command line will just kind of do it all for you. Another thing I like to do after this is all set up and installed is I like to install cmake, because a lot of times if I download something from Git and I build it, it needs cmake to build it. Or, of course, if you're doing other types of compiling, you might need it too. Like if you're using QCreator or something, you might possibly need it. So anyways, this is kind of doing this thing, and it takes a little bit to install, maybe a couple minutes at the most. But it's a couple minutes well spent. And as you can see, it's installing all kinds of stuff, the zlib development, standard C++ libraries, Perl, bin utilities, and all the good stuff, OpenSSL development. So many things, your kernel headers. This really is, I think even if I wasn't developing, I would still want to install this because it just has all these libraries available. So if you go and build something off of GitHub or install something in the future, you're going to already have these libraries in place, and it's just nice to have. And I would guess it's probably equivalent to like base devel on Arch, I think. So yeah, good stuff. glibc, and it's complete. Nice. And after that, I like to install cmake because cmake isn't on here actually included in that. So I'm going to do sudo dnf install cmake and just do that real quick. Because a lot of times when you run like a GitHub install, it looks for cmake. And so that's something I like to have on here as well. And I believe GitHub was already installed, or Git, I mean, was already installed the first time when I ran the development group install there, but just in case, I can't remember if it puts in Git. So I'm just going to do sudo dnf in Git, and it says it's already installed. So we're good there. So now we're ready. So I want to go out to DT's site here, gitlab.com/dwt1/color or shell-color-scripts with an S and spell color right. There we go. And here we are. So this is DT's shell color scripts, and I really like this. This is really cool. This is kind of spices up your terminal a bit. And so I'm going to go here and I'm going to clone this. So here I'm going to do clone with HTTPS and just hit the copy URL button there. And then I'm going to git clone it down here in our terminal. And well, first I got to type git clone. I just typed in the link. That was dumb. So let me back up here. And I'm going to type git clone space and then our git clone address. And so that copied everything and created a folder. So I'm going to cd shell-color-scripts, and that put us in the shell color scripts folder, which was just created. So now that we're inside that folder, let's go down and see what the install instructions are. These are all the cool color things that show up in your terminal. And those are the Arch install. Just a make config -cf, but we're on Fedora. So scroll down a little bit more and we got installing scripts in Fedora. And here it's showing just to do a sudo make install. So easy peasy. So I'll just type that sudo make install and hit enter. And there we go. Easy peasy. That's all we got to do. Now we just got to edit our bash RC, I believe. So let me take a look here. Okay, those are the optional thing, but yeah, I want to put it in our bash RC so that way it automatically launches every time we open the terminal. So nano.bashrc, nano space .bashrc. But I got to get out of this folder first because this is in the home folder. So nano space .bashrc. And I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom here with my arrow key, hit the return one more time to give us some space. And then I'm going to put a hashtag in here and just do a comment so I know what this is. So DT's color script. And then I'm just going to type in color script space random. So that'll activate our color script and load a random color. And then I hit Control S to save it. And now I'm going to type source space .bashrc. And there we go. What source did was that activated our bash RC, reloaded it. And so now we'll get those cool color scripts. I also just installed Wine. Wine's -devel is like the latest and greatest. And I accidentally hit pause here. So we kind of skipped right over the whole install of the Wine. But all I did was sudo dnf in wine-devel and hit enter. And then it installed version 8.6.-1. So now we got the latest and greatest Wine installed, and that's good. If you don't run any Windows apps at all, then you don't need Wine really, but Wine will run most Windows apps, not all of them, but a lot of Windows apps it'll run. And so like MetaTrader 5, I like to use that. That's one of my most used Windows apps that I run in Wine. So handy. And just a fun fact, suppose you were in here and you were like, decided, man, GNOME is such a downer. I'm tired of GNOME. I want to go back to something else like Cinnamon. Well, here's another cool little trick, kind of like a fun fact. You can actually switch out one desktop for another. So if you got tired of GNOME and you didn't want to use it anymore and you're like, man, GNOME's a real downer, man. I don't like it anymore. Give me something else. Well, you can actually switch from GNOME to some other desktop, like say Cinnamon, in just one little console command called the DNF swap. And so that's really handy if you just decide you want to convert over to another desktop without having to reinstall. So to do that, all we got to do is come down here to our magic terminal and type in sudo dnf swap at gnome-desktop space, and then @ symbol again, cinnamon-desktop. And then if you press enter, it'll swap out your GNOME and install the Cinnamon desktop. And then your Cinnamon desktop will be your new desktop environment, but you'll still have everything that you had before that you've installed and all that good stuff. So that's how you do that. I'm not going to actually press it though, because I don't want to really do that, but just thought I'd show you how to do that just as a fun fact. So there we are. I'm just going to shrink that back down and maybe close our browser here and just kind of move onward and upward. We'll close out of our package manager and then just jump into our menu here and just kind of take a look at some of the stuff that's on here. So if we go into our settings, might as well start with that and just take a quick look here and maybe mess with our appearance a little bit. So I'm just going to hit that, and maybe we'll go into our dark mode, because I kind of like dark mode. So I'm going to hit that. And then as you can see, the wallpaper is just changed automatically. So that's really cool too. I like it. And that default actually is kind of nice. I like those clouds with the colored stars in the background. That's cool. And so you got some nice looking wallpapers here that come in both a light and a dark version. And that's kind of cool, actually. I like that. Wow. Yeah, I might stick with that. That looks nice. So that one it is, whatever they call it, the cool wallpaper. And so here we got all our usual GNOME settings here. Here's sharing, so that's kind of cool. If you want to share your files or use remote desktop, you can just turn it all on here, media sharing and all that. So it makes it real easy to just pop in here and do that. And you can even change your device name if you want. But to actually change anything, you need to toggle this switch up there under sharing, and then that'll activate all this stuff. And then you can go in and turn things on and off to your heart's content. So here we can turn on remote desktop if you want to be able to do that. Remote control will allow you or someone else to remote into your desktop. So if you want to be able to remote to it from somewhere. And then your remote desktop address is right there. So that's kind of nice, this little setting here for sharing. Makes things a lot easier instead of having to do it manually. So a very nice feature. And I think most people would probably use the file sharing, like back here in our main menu. So file sharing can be turned on right here, and you can require a password if you want. And that'll share files from your public folder across your network if you have a network. And then here's our display settings. So here's where you can change the resolution on your monitor and all that stuff, your scaling. And then printers. Printers is very straightforward. If you have a Linux-friendly printer, you can just go in here and hit the Add Printer, and then it'll detect it for you. And oftentimes it'll just detect it before you ever even get in here. It'll just find it when you install your system here if you have your printer on. So, but this is very handy. And if you buy a printer, just look for the little Linux logo there on the box. It'll show you that it's handy. HP is really good. Here under users, you can give yourself an avatar. So I'm just going to pick maybe that beach one there, surfing. I like it. That's me. And then you can turn on automatic login if you don't want to log in when you start up your computer. And to do that, you would hit this unlock button, and then you can authenticate, and then it'll open up this so you can activate it. And you can just click automatic login there and toggle that on, and then it'll do it. I typically don't use that, but it is pretty handy if you don't want to log in. And then, of course, you can change your username and password right there. So very easy to manage your user stuff. Then we got our date and time settings. If you don't like the 24-hour format, you can change it to AM, PM right here. And so that's kind of nice. And then, of course, our automatic time zone, you can turn on if you wish, but it's already correct, so no need. And then our about kind of shows us all what we're running here, GNOME version 38, which is great. We're running the Wayland windowing system, and our kernel is the latest and greatest at 6.2.9. Nice. And so back in our menu, and again, I hit Super A to go directly into the menu. I'm just going to open up LibreOffice real quick because I just want to see how the theming is. Typically in Fedora, theming holds up nice, and it did. And a lot of distros, when you go switch over to a dark theme, that messes up the theme and LibreOffice, and then you got to go down here to like options under view or under tools, and then go to view, and then you would select under your icon theme. And here we got automatic and like Seeper or something dark. So it is already set up beautifully. You can even use a light theme in here, even when everything else is dark. So that's a nice option too. So another big plus for Fedora, the theming worked. It stayed consistent, and I like seeing that. And so here we got our media writer. All the kind of standard stuff here for GNOME is found right here in Fedora. And geez, text editor. Text editor is actually pretty cool, the GNOME one. Like if we take a quick look at it here, you can create a new document. So before we were in the terminal using Nano, but this is the GUI version, the graphical version. And like if we go into preferences here, they got some cool settings. You got all these different themes that are available that you can set your background and highlighting in and so forth, and custom fonts. You can display a grid pattern, highlight your current line, have an overview map. So a lot of nice things. Right margin view there, and the position, behavior, and so forth. So nice. I like it. And of course, you can toggle any of these on and off to just really tweak. And then here we got your different themes, which I'm liking. And of course, the tooltip there, it kind of tells you the name of the theme too when you stop your mouse for a second. So these look nice. I'm liking it. I kind of like that theme. It's pretty cool. And so, yeah, you type in there and see you don't have any line numbers or anything by default, but you can set those in the preferences as well. So like we could come up to our burger menu here, which is also known as the main menu. Or actually, first, let's go in our view settings here real quick, or view options. And here we have show right margin and our line numbers. That's kind of what I like the best. That's my big thing, are the line numbers. So now when we add things in here, then it gives us line numbers. So if you're loading in a document with a bunch of code, then that makes a big difference. Here you can set your tabs or spaces when you hit spaces for your tabs. So like when you tab over, instead of being 8 spaces, it could be 4 or 6. Another nice feature. So yeah, I really kind of like it. And here's your right margin, so you can show that, and of course set the spacing if you want. So really a pretty nice little text editor, I think, overall. And then finally, I went the long way in that time. And our utilities, one of the utilities I really like is this, the disk usage analyzer. This is really nice. I mean, every once in a while I've run into problems, not real often, but sometimes I've run into problems where my disk became full and something was taking up a ton of space and I couldn't figure out what it was. So something like this is kind of handy to help narrow something like that down. You just click on your disk there, and then it'll analyze the space usage on your disk. And so it gives you this really nice graphical and shows you where the most space is being used. And as you can see, the user folder is 92% of the space that's being occupied so far, which is quite normal. And there's not a whole lot of space being used on this drive, actually. But if I was having one of those kind of issues, this would be a great way to help narrow down where I'm using up so much space if you kind of run into something like that. But regardless, it's a nice way to just kind of get a quick bird's eye view of your folder structure and how much stuff is in each one. So I really like this. Very nice. And it even lays out the folder names and so forth, subfolders in there. So a very cool utility, something I think is really worthwhile. And one of the things that GNOME really got right, I think, was this nice little disk utility. I remember back in my Windows days, there was something like this. It was so long ago, though, I can't remember what it was, but this might have been inspired from it, or the Windows app might have been inspired by this. So very good. And I'll just close that out real quick. And there's that cool background. I love it. And I'm just going to open up our file viewer real quick. We didn't really take a look at this yet, but this is the GNOME file viewer, I believe. Yeah, I see about files there. So that is our files, GNOME file viewer. And another feature I like in files is the ability to star files, which I think is kind of cool. It looks like downloads is the only one that has a file in it. But if you want to star one, that's kind of cool because you can pick either a file or a directory, and you can right click and go down to properties and then click this little star right here. That star, you can think of that like a checkbox, but it's a check star. Now it appears in your starred folder. So anything you check as a star in the properties on any folder or file, either one, will show up in the starred directory here. So that little shortcut is really nice. I kind of like that. So you can pick out all your different little files and folders and so forth and just star them. And then you have quick, easy access to them. So that's a feature that I think is really cool here in GNOME Files, which aka Nautilus. So really well done. And of course, that's not a new feature, but it's just a feature I like. So awesome. And I'm going to open up my terminal lastly and just kind of do a top here. And I want to see what we got for usage. And it looks like about 1.7 gigs of memory is being used right now, which I would say is pretty typical for a GNOME install here, especially after we've been running it a while. And I don't know what I just did there, but somehow I got logged out. I pressed Control-C for some reason, and somehow that kind of made it freak out a little bit. I think that's what I pressed. I'm not really sure what I pressed. It might have been Windows-C, Super-C, I don't know. But anyway, we got all this back now, and I just really like that color script that DT from Distrotube created there. I think that is too cool. And if you want to kind of go through these, you can just manually type what we put in our .bash RC, color script space random. And there's a color script. I can hit my up arrow key and just kind of repeat that process. And I can keep doing that to my heart's content. And just putting in color script will kind of show you all the different commands that you can use with that, which is nice too, in case you need to get a fix on more things. But let's do some more randoms here. There's a Doom one, kind of cool, and another nice one. So we could just keep going through here. And that was like the first one I saw before, and another great one. And I kind of got addicted to having that on a terminal. I think that's really great. So double thumbs up for that. And Derek. So I'm going to move that over and just kind of set it off to the side. And I think I've pretty much covered it. So yes, Fedora 38 is looking really good. I think the main purpose of this video was just to kind of show you some of the little tweaks you can do after you install Fedora, any Fedora really. But particularly Fedora 38, I'm liking the way it feels and runs, very snappy. So real positive vibe out of it. And like I said, my main purpose was to just kind of show you some things to do after you install Fedora that could be handy, especially if you're a developer or you just want to optimize your DNF and stuff like that. But whether you're using Fedora 38 GNOME or one of the spins like the Budgie Desktop or the Cinnamon XFCE, they have a ton of spins out there. So that's another thing. If you are not a GNOME fan and you'd like to use one of the other ones, all the spins are Fedora 38 as well. So when you get a major release, they release for all of them. And I'll have a spins link right down in the link below as well. So I think that's going to cover it. And I hope this little run around with Fedora was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.